Everyone wants to leave a legacy of positivity in the world around them. Whether you are a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, a nonprofit executive director, or even a soon-to-be entrepreneur, one fact is always true. The easiest and most effective way to catalyze change in the world around you is through commerce and through business. But how do you do it? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Changemakers Collective, a place where people can come and get educated and encouraged and empowered to be the impact agent in the world around them. Brought to you by Silverback Ventures, Steph Thomas and Scott Woods have over 50 years combined experience helping companies and owners amplify the voice and multiply the impact of purpose-driven businesses. Join us each week as we discuss what it means to live a life of purpose on purpose.
So, welcome back to the Changemakers Collective. I am Stephanie. That is
Scott. How's it going?
How's it going? And we are super excited that you're with us today. We are going to talk about a subject that either really gives you some anxiety or you really just have drawn a hard line and don't mind one way or the other. So, we're talking about faith in business. And
that's a super interesting way how you describe that.
Well,
it is, because I agree with you. It can be very divisive, right? Mm-hmm. There's a whole pile of people that say your faith should have nothing to do with our business at all.
You know, I did a little bit of research around this before we started talking, right? Forever 21, which is a girl clothing line, very trendy. They have John 3:16 on every one of their bags.
I did know that, actually. Our daughter used to buy stuff from there. I did know that.
Tyson's Chicken. They have an opportunity for their staff to pray every day. Coca-Cola has not only faith base in their scriptures printed, hung, openly give to
faith-based businesses.
Faith-based businesses. NASCAR.
Yes.
Completely faith-based. But I mean, Chick-fil-A refuses to open on Sunday based on their religious views.
And they sell more Monday through Saturday than McDonald's and Burger King combined.
Yeah. So the only reason I brought that up.
Come on, somebody, let's go.
I know. Just because sometimes people are afraid to put that out there, and some people are very unapologetic about it.
Yeah, and I think for us, and if you go to silverbackventures.org, it's clear. And I think if you met us, what I think is cool about how we demonstrate our faith, we're not going to beat you to death with a Bible.
All right. So here's the thing, right? If you believe in a higher power, if you believe in God, if you believe almost everybody, whether you are a Christian believer or you are Buddhist or you are
Muslim,
a good person, we all have a tagline of love others like you love yourself, right? Yeah. So basically just be a good person and be nice to people.
My son's got a t-shirt that says, be a good human.
Be a good human.
Now, we take that very literally, and we believe strongly that our job as followers of Christ, as Jesus Christ, the Christian faith, is to love God and love people.
In that order.
What it doesn't mean is that every time we talk to anybody, we're trying to convert you from whatever you believe currently to what we believe. Right. That's not our job.
So we have a partner, Emmy, who we had a conversation around, right? His belief systems are different than our belief systems, unapologetically, but that doesn't mean that we don't work really well together.
No, I mean, again, people, and I say people as a generic
collective
term, right? I mean, I don't know who they are that cause division. I have some general feelings about how division gets caused. And I strongly believe that our faith is one that should be unifying regardless of what it is, our job is to love God, love people, and the fruit of our relationship with God is that we are kind and joyful and loving and gracious and patient. That is where society kind of falls down, right?
Right.
You have all of the current, and what's fascinating, I get the blessing of being able to talk to college kids a lot.
Mhm.
What's interesting is to watch their parents' generation, which is the generation after us, be very much agnostic. That we don't want to hear about it. You're pushing it down our throats. You're hypocritical, whatever the case may be. And what I found with the college students now is they're much more eager to learn. Let me make my own decision.
Well, just be honest about
Yes, let me make my own
right.
decision. I'm going to investigate it. They're the age of information. Again, we want to lay the foundation of who we are before we talk about it coming across and bleeding into our business lives, because you can't separate. I should say it this way. If you can separate your beliefs from the way you show up at work, I would question if they're actually your beliefs.
Right. Okay, so Scott,
Oh, man, we're going to have all kinds of people
I know
screaming and yelling now.
we understand, and if
If you don't believe that, then just shut us off.
right, or call us because we will have a
Yes, a loving
soft
conversation. Yeah.
I
We
said
wanna seek
soft,
to
you said
understand.
loving. That's
Yeah.
good. It was never our intention to push people into a thought process that thought that we were not believers. If
No, but the
right,
opposite is also true,
right,
right? I mean, we
we are unapologetically
yeah, that
Christians.
again, to your point, that we can't separate the two.
Right.
That's who we are. I'm going to throw a scripture out. Ephesians 2:10 says that we were created as God's masterpiece. When we said yes to becoming a part of the Christian faith, we were created anew. The old is gone and new is here. And we were created for a purpose, the purpose that God had for us long before we even knew him.
So I all the time say live a life of purpose
On
on
purpose.
purpose.
Mhm.
But going back to the purpose driven life, right? That's where where
Rick Warren.
my journey really came from, of making sure that I live a life of purpose on purpose. But it shows up in my leadership. It shows up in and I don't have to stand in front of a group when I'm doing a leadership development or a strategic plan and say, "Hey, I believe in God." So I'm saying that to say, if your company, or if you are a believer but your company is not a organization that really
Supports it.
right, you can still be a believer and not have it listed
It's
on
the whole reason
every
you're there.
line.
Come
Right.
on. It's the whole. This is so important for all of people of faith listening to this podcast. Your job, unless you're specifically called, is not to stand on the street corner or on the pulpit somewhere and preach the gospel. St. Francis said, preach the gospel everywhere, sometimes use words.
Yeah, that's good.
So your job is to live a life worthy of Christ's sacrifice for us and to be the best you can be in whatever job you have. Demonstrate the joy and the love and the peace and the patience and the kindness and thankfulness and fruitfulness.
Scott, think about it. How many times have we been in a conversation with someone, faith not brought up at all, not even a little bit, and they say, "Well, hey, you're a believer, right?" Or or randomly say, "Hey, I'm not a believer and I have a question about this." Is that something you can have a conversation, like, not even related?
I had a meeting with a banker who he and I had done some work together for a client. I'll never forget this because he recently passed away, actually. And he called the meeting. I hadn't talked to him in a while. And I honestly, without any hesitation, thought he was going to talk to me about changing banks and wanting me to move my client's business over to there. So I fully had that mindset in the back of my mind when we sat down. And instead of sitting across from me, he sat next to me, which, all right, whatever.
Okay. Mhm.
I didn't really think too much of it. And he's like, I know. Now, I hadn't talked to him at all other than about bank stuff. He said, I know that you're a man of faith and I want to find my way back to what I lost. Can you help me? And I was just like, what an opportunity and what a testimony to what God does despite us.
Right.
He
Right.
doesn't need our help.
Right.
He doesn't need
Well,
our help.
exactly. But we're available if he needs to use
Yes,
us.
our job is to what? Love him and love people.
Mhm.
Love him, love people. Love him, love people. That's it.
So, Scott, people are on one side of the fence or the other.
Yeah.
So, for those that
Yeah.
are going to email us and say, shame on you for this or shame
Yep.
on you for that, unapologetically, we are believers. That does not mean that I have to punch you in the throat with it.
Mm-mm.
However, that also does not mean that if you're not a believer, I'm just not going to do business with you.
No, I don't really
I
understand.
don't
I
either.
don't really
Like, it
understand
drives
that
me
mentality
crazy.
at
Like,
all. I don't understand that mentality at all. The great commandment is to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the great commission is to love others as yourself.
right.
Well, you can't love yourself unless you recognize how much God loves you and how much he sacrificed for you. And once you get a hold of that, once you get a hold of the fact that if there was only you ever created in the entire universe, there's been 107 billion people that have been recorded in history. If you were the only one ever, God still would have sent his son to die for you.
Right.
Once you get a hold of that he loves you that much, you can't help but spread that to other people.
Right.
It
Okay.
becomes part of your DNA. It just oozes out of you. So regardless of whether you feel that way or not, is not going to change my reaction to you. It's not going to change my way I look at you. Because I look at you
Absolutely.
and I look at Kristen and I look at Joe Schmo on the street
The
the
same.
exact same way.
Right.
This
So,
is somebody created in the image of God who may or may not believe what I believe, but is still a human deserving of respect and love and grace and everything else.
someone recently asked me, what do you mean it shows up in all that you do? And I said, that's an easy one. Shows up in my core values, right?
Mhm,
So, I say integrity is one of my core values,
mhm.
right? I'm going to do what I say that I'll do, or at least if I don't do it, I'll call and say, hey, this is why I
Yep.
couldn't do it because, I have enough integrity about myself to call you, not make you call me. But, if I make a mistake, I own it. If um, I mean, just integrity, it's important to me. So, family, my family is
Mhm.
very important to me. But that looks like I show up for my family. So if
Mhm.
Scott and I are talking or we're somewhere and my kids call, I
Yeah, you're
make
gonna
sure
stop
they're
what you're doing.
okay, right? So and if someone is struggling, we could be having a
Hmm.
business strategy meeting, but if someone's struggling, I'm going to say, "Hey, is this an okay time? Do you want to talk?" Because real people come to work, right?
Yes. Well,
So
and I think that's the thing, right? I mean, if we're talking about, we could be on this conversation for hours and hours and hours and hours. But if we're talking about what it means to show up as your authentic self, whether you're Hindu or whether you're Christian or whether you're Muslim or whether you're agnostic or whether you're an atheist, be you. For us, it's not even, and I say this with all sincerity, you and I, neither one of us has a choice. We were created anew so that we could do that which God created us to do. We have something inside of us that can't not come out. The fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control, thankfulness. That just happens.
so in the business place, because some people are like, "Well, I'm a Christian until I come to work." Okay,
Or
well,
I'm going to tell everybody who's not a Christian that they're going straight to hell.
yeah, not okay. Not
No, not
okay.
okay at all.
So when I say patience,
Mm-hmm.
that means that you may not be a believer today, but let's go on a journey together.
Yeah, and it's not our job.
Right. Right. It's
No.
not our job. So, and I guess that's another thing. When someone was like, oh my goodness, you're going to do a faith based podcast? Like, what's that look like? I mean, people are going to stop listening. And I said, well, shame on them because we have a lot of very good things. This is just a topic that other people ask.
Mm-hmm.
How do I, how am I a Christian, but I'm going after government contracts?
Mm-hmm.
Well, just don't say you love Jesus while you're doing the contract, but show through the fruit of the Spirit that you are a believer.
Okay,
People
let's
will
time out right
notice.
there, because people are going to say and go, well, are you ashamed of what your beliefs are?
Absolutely not.
Why wouldn't you say that you're an outward believer? Because that's not what they asked.
Right. If someone asks me,
Yeah.
I absolutely say, oh, yeah.
That would be like somebody saying, are you white?
Well, yeah. Right.
I mean, it's no different, right? It is
Are you a woman?
We very much
Yes.
believe it's a changed DNA inside of us that you cannot separate the two.
Right. I don't have to start the conversation though. And that was kind of my point to them. Right.
Yeah, that's a true statement.
I don't have to walk into the room and say, hey, I'm Stephanie Thomas and I'm a Christian.
No.
I can walk into the room and say, hey.
Yeah.
And have a conversation, and someone usually will say, man, there's something different about you.
Yeah. I mean, I think, all right, I'm going to go a little preachy now. I think the church globally has done a poor job of having our walk with the Lord, or with whatever faith you have, be about the outputs, instead of somehow you've got a whole pile of people that it feels their responsibility to beat people into heaven.
Well, again, there would not be a thing called the fruit of the Spirit if it all depended on you publicly identifying where your walk is.
And, we have a client that works in the addiction treatment space. It'd be like me going down the street and say, you're an addict. You need to come.
Yeah,
you need to become part of our organization. No, that's not how it works.
So Scott, C12. They help people with that, right? Explain that a little bit.
C12 is a Christian business networking group for Christian CEOs.
Okay.
And they get a bunch of believers together who happen to be CEOs, and they talk about solving problems
of secular companies,
of whatever company. Right. Doesn't matter. The only qualification is you love Jesus and you happen to be a part of a big business. And they come at problems that they're having within their business from a biblical standpoint. Now, while I don't have anything against C12, I think they do amazing work. I don't necessarily think there's a need for it, because much like if we are living our life in a way that is honoring to what God called us to do, to love him and to love people who are created in the image of God and may or may not be where we are in our faith journey, why would I have to segregate myself and only be talking to people who think exactly the way I think? Now, there's some value in community.
Like-minded.
Yeah,
right.
There's some value in community and talking about how do we defend ourselves and our faith? How do we manage to live out our faith in such a way that's honoring to God, but also not offensive to those people who don't feel the same way? Again, that's one of those where I really feel strongly that if you are
wrapped in a bubble.
Yeah. If you're wrapped in a bubble, you're going to miss it.
Right. You said a word just now that I think is important for us to bring up. And I saw you just get
I know.
fired
Yeah.
up.
I got an idea that I'm going to burst.
So people talk about diversity in their companies, right? And that typically is race generated. That's typically male and female generated. But people forget that you also can be okay with a diverse group of people that believe differently. So I'm not saying that as a Christian, because someone's going to say, well, you're saying that, that's not what I'm saying. But you can't witness to people, or you can't say that you are a believer and never surround yourself with non-believers that can see your light.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a follower of Jesus, what he didn't do is hang out with the people that were already
Jesus lovers,
the most religious.
Right.
He hung out with those that were prostitutes and the worst of the worst in society, the homeless, the murderers, and the laborers that didn't want anything to do with them. And
the non-believers.
Yes, because he came to seek and save the lost. And why would I go to somebody who already thinks they know? I want to go to people that are hungry for truth and for understanding what it means. I think I go back to the fact that we as the global church have just done such a poor job of marketing. I hate to say it that way, but that's what it is, of who we are and what we stand for. We spend so much more time talking about what we're not. And oh, if you do this, you can't get in. If you do this, you can't get in. If you say this, or if you wear this color, or you walk on this kind of the street, or whatever the case may be, heaven is going to be a place filled with every ethnos. The actual translation is every nation, tribe, and tongue. Every ethnicity, whether you're black, green, purple, orange, doesn't make a difference. Man, female, doesn't make a difference.
The word race is not in the Bible.
That's correct. Race is a term
man-made term
that man created. It's an ethnicity. There's one race,
right.
Human race, made up of a variety of people. And I think the diversity piece, if you're not surrounding yourself with people of different socioeconomic backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, gender backgrounds, you're missing out on a wealth of knowledge and experience and opportunity for growth that your company is just going to miss out on.
A lot of times people say, well, if I don't.
Sorry, I'm getting fired up about this because this is just, it makes me crazy that we miss this as a society.
Well, the truth is we work with faith-based companies and non-faith-based companies. And some of the faith-based companies that are the proverbial stand on the corner and scream, come to Jesus, are sometimes the most put off by God's people, right?
Yes,
And
that's true.
sometimes some of the we're not Christian at all companies invite us in and have conversations that I would have never thought. So I'm not, and I want to just make sure that we are clear. If you are selling Bibles, then you're pretty much going to have to tell everybody that you're a believer, right? If you are selling cupcakes, if the opportunity arises,
but it's all relationship.
It's
right?
all relationship.
I think when we talk about how to show up as your authentic self, if your life has been changed by faith, you cannot show up any other way than your changed self. And you didn't come to faith by somebody beating you on the head with a Bible.
Right.
You came to faith because somebody you loved and you trusted and you were in a relationship with came around you, put their arm around you, and when you asked a question, they had an answer.
Right. But here's the thing. It's also in what market do you want to be in, right? So if you are believers and you want to have government contracts, you can't have your full website list all the scriptures because they
will automatically discriminate against you.
Right. I mean, well, they can't. They
discriminate.
Right. So, but when you show up, let's say you get the contract and you show up, then again, you're not standing on the corner. You know your audience.
Take you with you everywhere you go.
Right. So the question was, can you have a faith-based?
How do you bring your faith to work? I'm a firm believer that you're already doing it. You're already doing it every day, all day long. The question is, are you showing up as your authentic self or are you not?
Right. So as we wrap this up, we know, or we believe, because we are successful in our work environment, and we are unapologetically a faith-based company, Christians specifically, and we show up as loving God and loving others.
I mean, I think there's, I don't want people to walk away going, well, that's all fine, well and good, but what does that mean for me? If you've got questions, please email us. Right. You will find a soft, gracious place to have a conversation. You can yell, you can scream, you can question, whatever. We haven't gotten it all figured out. We're all on a journey, but we know that we've been transformed by the love of God through Jesus. And we want you to feel the same way and have the same experience.
Right. So as you live your life of purpose on purpose, make sure to subscribe to us and send our podcast to a friend.
And if you like these kinds of episodes, I'd love to do one of these fairly frequently. So let us know what you think. All right. Talk to you later.
Thank you for listening to the Changemakers Collective. If you've enjoyed this episode, please help us grow our community by leaving us a review on Apple Podcast or rating us on Spotify.
You can also find our podcast on YouTube, so you can come and leave us a comment over there as well. If you want support growing your business and scaling your vision, visit us at silverbackventures.org or connect with us on LinkedIn.
Thanks again, and we'll see you on our next episode.